Hi, I'm J. the Technologist. Welcome back to my channel and the second episode of the 7-part series. This is Miss Mac. Say hi, Miss Mac. I'm trying to build this series to be a foundation for a lot of other topics that I want to get into on this channel. So to do so, I need to lay some foundational pieces to get into what I'll be breaking down later. Please also leave a like and subscribe to help boost this video on the algorithm. It's 2013. I'm in graduate school at East Tennessee State University, going for my new media studio master's, a cross-disciplinary program between the digital media department and the art departments. I'm learning how to build video games with the Unreal Engine. I'm learning the history of modern art. I'm taking drawing classes where I'm creating creatures that are manifestations and personifications of the mass wireless communication apparatus, manipulating the electromagnetic spectrum in our collective consciousness. I used art to help me comprehend how media affects the minds of the masses. Century of the Self, Edward Bernays, propaganda, public relations. Did you know that artists like William de Kooning, Jackson Pollock, and Mark Rothko were backed by the CIA to help promote abstract American art in Cold War-era European countries to combat the communist Soviet propaganda machine, which claimed that America lacked culture, art, music, and history? You know, a normal tech school art education. The last year of my studies, I found myself at the East Coast Game Conference, my first look behind the veil of this medium that had been so instrumental to my childhood. If you can't tell already, I'm a lifelong gamer. At this conference, the keynote address blew my mind. It helped me understand some part of myself and understand why I started.
It starts.
The keynote was delivered by Jason VandenBerghe, a creative director at Ubisoft who helped shape AAA games like Far Cry 3 and For Honor.
How many folks in here are familiar with my work on the 5 domains? The 5 domains of play, have you heard of it? No? I've been giving a series of talks at the GDC for the last 2 or 3 years on this topic. And this talk, it's like my summary. So the talk is acting like players.
That talk became a turning point for me. It was the first time I saw how the framework psychologists use to define a well-lived, fulfilling life could be mapped onto game design. Things like autonomy, challenge, and connection aren't just words for a therapy session. They were also dials and levers in the hands of game designers, used to craft compelling experiences that fulfill those same deeply human needs. Over time, I came to see the reverse was also true. If game mechanics could be built to produce fulfillment in virtual spaces, then maybe those same game mechanics could be used in real life to analyze why we are who we are, why we feel what we feel, and are compelled to do the things we're compelled to do. Returning to that keynote, at the heart of VandenBerghe's lecture was one question, in pursuit of a methodology to answer it. Why do we start? VandenBerghe began his approach where another had left off. Bartle's taxonomy of players. In the mid to late 70s, during the rising popularity of tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons, Richard Bartle and his colleague Roy Trubshaw created a multi-user text-based computer RPG. Imagine a multiplayer Zork for you deep game history nerds. This became the predecessor to massively multiplayer online RPGs, or Morpigs, like Warcraft, StarCraft, and RuneScape, where a persistent world and characters exist and users can socialize with each other until the end of time that the server is hosted. You know, world building.
Oh boy.
Can we help?
You may make some people.
They were the first to start building functional, fictional digital worlds. As Bartle observed the discussions of the users, the people inhabiting his digital world, he came across a debate between the inhabitants about what they wanted out of this world. What do they like about this game? After much discussion, 4 subgroups emerged as driving forces behind why users find the same set of gameplay elements fun. Along one axis is a drive to engage with the game world versus a drive to engage with game players. Along another axis is a drive to act on those things, or action, and a drive to interact with things. When these axes are crossed with one another, we get this 4-quadrant graph. If you like acting on the world, you're an achiever, motivated by conquering the mountain, collecting every token, or achieving 100% completion. If you like interacting with the world, you're an explorer, driven to uncover secrets, answer questions, and push boundaries just to see what's around the next corner. If you like interacting with other players, you're a socializer, seeking engagement, feedback loops, and shared experiences. If you like acting on other players, you're a killer, thriving in competition, seeking to outmatch, outperform, and dominate a field of skilled players. Now, returning to VandenBerghe's keynote.
I was having a conversation with my sister. She's a PhD psychology person, and we were talking about psychology, and she said, have you ever heard of the Big Five? And I said, the Big what? If you have never heard of it, is a model of human psychology that started around 1990 that is spread around worldwide. If you've done a job application and it's had a personality test in it recently, it was the Big Five.
The Big Five is one of the most studied and accepted psychological models to quantify elements of a personality. It works across 5 traits represented by the acronym OCEAN. Openness to experience, which aligns with explorers, becomes novelty. Openness to experience is a general appreciation of art, emotion, adventure, unusual ideas, imagination, curiosity, and variety of experience. People who are open to experience are intellectually curious, open to emotion, sensitive to beauty, and willing to try new things. Conscientiousness aligns with achievers and becomes challenge. Conscientiousness is a tendency to display self-discipline, act dutifully, and strive for achievement against measures or outside expectations. It is related to the way in which people control, regulate, and direct their impulses. Extroversion, which aligns with killers, becomes stimulation. Extroversion is characterized by breadth of activities as opposed to depth. Surgency from external activity, situations, and energy creation from external means. The trait is marked by pronounced engagement with the external world. Agreeableness aligns with socializers, becomes harmony. The agreeableness trait reflects individual differences in general concern for social harmony. Agreeable individuals value getting along with others. They are generally considerate, kind, generous, trusting, and trustworthy, helpful and willing to compromise their interest with others. And then there's neuroticism.
Neuroticism, just a quick note, I'm going to take this one off because the top 4 predict what you like. They predict what kind of game you're going to choose when you decide to play. The bottom one seems to predict why you'll stop. If you're having a good time, you get pissed off, you stop playing.
Or, put another way, why people exit. I touched on some of that in my first episode.
That's what neuroticism is about. It's not the topic of this talk, so I'm going to pull that one out of there.
But I'm putting a big old red pin in this one. The things that make a game engaging, fun, and worth returning to are the things that game designers should optimize for: motivation, challenge, and engagement. Games that tend towards elevating social power struggles among its players lead to non-consensual psychological distress. So you really shouldn't make games like that. See the People Make Games video on the game prototype that had to be banned by its own studio. So neuroticism is left off of VandenBerghe's model alignment because that trait tends to deal with why people stop playing.
So for now, we're going to talk about the 4 domains of play.
So VandenBerghe adopts and adapts these psychological frameworks as a means of classifying gamer personality. And he gets this big model here.
So what's it good for? Imagine this is like your game, right? Okay, so we got these 4 spectrums. So I can tell you that your game covers like these motivations, right? Your game is like, is that band of motivations, and that's cool. So then I can take a player, right? And I can say, oh, if their test scores are like that, they're gonna like your game, right? And if their test scores are like that, they're not gonna like your game so much. So what?
He's a bit flabbergasted at the question and doesn't have an answer immediately. But an interesting methodology comes out of his pursuit for why this should matter. He wanted to know why. Why does an achiever like to collect, an explorer like to uncover, a socializer like to engage, and a killer like to act on? To figure it out, he decided to set out and play every video game on the shelf at an extensive video game library he had access to, from A to Z. His rules were this: pick a player type, killer, achiever, explorer, or socializer. Play the game for a minimum of 2 hours, as that player type would play in the game. If the game offered something new to him while in this mindset, a new mechanic, a new style, a new twist to something familiar, anything mildly justifiable to this rule, he would play the game for an extra hour, 4 games a week. It took him over 2.5 years to complete the challenge. I recall when he explained this methodology to us, his surprise at Barbie horse adventures. He learned that just because a game is described as serene doesn't mean that the game is boring. He found himself engrossed in the game loop. He became loyal to the grind. Oh, give me the dopamine. Jason had gained the power of player empathy. He gained the ability to alter his perspective to understand why someone else with a completely different aesthetic and taste profile from his own likes the thing they like. By playing games he otherwise would have never touched, he wasn't just analyzing the mechanics of the game, he was adopting different player personas. This is empathy in game design. The ability to step into another player's perspective to gain an appreciation for the thing that they are motivated by is an immensely powerful tool. This gives the keeper of those perspectives the ability to recognize different paths towards engagement in the landscape of available activities. So there's this test that you can take to see where within the Bartle types you fall. I've got a link in the description. Here's my score. I'm heavy in the Explorer region. I once gave a keynote address myself to an educators conference. When I gave those teachers this test, the overwhelming majority of them also wound up tending towards the Explorer category. Among teachers, and as a fellow teacher, this wasn't very surprising to me. But I remember one of the teachers did tend towards being an achiever. They also happened to be the sports team coach.
We will be perfect in every aspect of the game. You drop a pass, you run a mile.
Everyone falls somewhere on this graph, explaining why they will start something, what attracts them to the task, a mission, an achievement, an engagement, a game. Take the test and find out what qualities tend to make you start. Drop your answers in the comments. Conclusion. So we're 2 episodes down out of this 7-part series. So far we've covered why we exit and why we start. But once we're engaged, what keeps us there? Once someone has your attention, how do they hold it? How do I hold your attention, Makkuro? Jason VandenBerghe also offers a response to this question. It looks something like this. This diagram is another frame, another psychological map. One that begins to explain, why do we keep playing? What do we need to feel connected to the system that we're a part of, not just compliant with it? If you're enjoying this series, please drop a comment letting me know if and how what I'm talking about might be resonating with you. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next one.